Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Good to Great Schools Australia's next webinar in our series. And today we're going to focus on how we build a supportive, positive school climate by making sure that we have positive, high expectations of everything that happens in our school, of our students, of our staff, of our parents, and of ourselves in everything that we do. And what we're trying to do, of course, is always focus on developing that type of environment where the student feels supported, where they feel safe, where they can do their very best every day that they attend. Our goal today is to share with you those practical opportunities that we can develop for students to further develop their self-regulation, how we can help them reduce disruption to classrooms, and how we promote that positive engagement right across the school community. So my name is Julie Grantham. I'm a former teacher, principal and Director General of Education in Queensland, and I'm currently the Director of Schools for Good to Great Schools Australia. In today's webinar, we're looking about 30 minutes of presentation and then allowing for 10 minutes for question and answers at the end. And through that time, we're going to explore how our approach can empower teachers, how we can simplify lesson delivery, and how we foster that student engagement that we're all looking for through the school day. But before we do that, let's look at some housekeeping. One of the things that's really helpful in a webinar is that if you can use that question and answer feature that's there on that bottom line. Throughout the webinar, you may have a question you want to ask, but also you may feel that you want to comment on something that's been said. And if we can get that sort of thing into the chat, then what we can do at the end is come back and make sure we can have that positive discussion about what's in that question and answer area. Also, if you want to see all the presenters throughout the webinar, then please go to View Select in Gallery View and select the Gallery View. So see there up at the top, Gallery View, select Gallery View to see all the presenters. Finally, before we start our webinar, one of the things we would love to do at the end is to get your feedback, and a short 4-question survey will pop up, and we'd love you to take some time just to give us that feedback so that we can constantly improve on what we do and get better at what we're doing to satisfy your needs. I'm joined today by 3 presenters. First of all, Steph is going to talk. She's a curriculum developer at Good to Great Schools Australia. Then we've got Mark, who's a former principal of a very large secondary school, but also primary schools in Queensland, and also Jonty, who we've had Jonty as a guest on our webinars before, because Jonty is actually working in a school and can present to us practical approaches that he sees every day. So let's first ask Steph to introduce herself more fully. Thanks, Steph.
Thanks, Julie. Hi, everyone. My name's Stephanie. I'm a teaching coach and curriculum developer at Good to Great Schools Australia. With my 10 years of experience in education, I've devoted much of that time to direct instruction and literacy intervention. And now my current role, I coach schools to implement evidence-based curriculum resources and support them with professional learning programs. And I also help support schools to achieve a positive, high expectation school climate. So I'm excited to be presenting this webinar today.
Thank you. And Jonty.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jonty, and I do work in Hopevale, where these programs are being implemented, and it's a privilege to be here.
Thank you. And Mark, I said Mark was an experienced principal. Can I also say he's one of the best respected principals I ever had the pleasure of working with. So Mark, a very warm welcome to you. This is the first time we've had you join us, and hopefully not the last time.
Thanks so much, Julie. Hi, everybody. Yes, look, a background in both primary and secondary schools across Queensland. Had a little bit to do with accreditation of schools across Australia and also in Malaysia. And had a really great experience introducing DI into large, complex secondary school. So have really enjoyed that part and happy to be part of this afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. And one of the things that Mark didn't say there is in his retirement, he's giving back to the system by working in schools in remote locations and not doing full-time work, but part-time work. And I think it's a great thing that retired principals can offer that back to their systems, Mark. So thank you. we're also going to try something different today. And we tried this in the last webinar. And this is to try and give us the guidance of what it is that you're looking for. What do you want out of today's session? And you can see there's a single statement. And what we would love you to do is actually select which statement actually reflects your need today. And if you're going to say, I'm looking for something else, and it's not there in those first four, could you pop that into the chat so that we can have a look and come back and make sure that we're responding to everyone's needs? So it'd be terrific if you could just quickly take a minute or a couple of seconds, you haven't got a minute, to actually decide which one your answer would be. And I think that once we've finished that, we actually see a result of that poll. If we don't, we'll keep moving on. But if usually we can see a result in that poll. No, not today. No, there it is. Okay, so interestingly, I want to explore that professional learning opportunity. Well, that's something we certainly do in this webinar, and Steph's going to lead us in that area in exploring professional learning opportunities. And I love it. I'm not sure it was free. The great thing about all our materials is everything is free. So everything you see today, plus anything we've offered in any other webinar, is free. So there's no charge. And when I take you through what the quality of the presentations that our developers do, you'll be blown away, I'm sure. So let's move on to what we're doing today. So what we're going to look at is focusing on those strategies that can help you in your school create those positive, high expectation school communities. Every school I know would already have a framework in which they're operating. And if you are working in a certain framework, this gives you the opportunity to do that checklist. You know, are we doing that? Are we doing this? Is this something that can help make our school better? So today we're going to look at how we create those safe and supportive school climates where everyone feels valued, and not just the students, but everyone in the school, in the community, feels part of that school. How do we minimise and reduce those classroom disruptions that rob us of that valuable learning time? And how do we also implement those consistent practices so that the standard that the school has devised is the standard you see on display all the time? And what behaviour management systems can you implement that will help you deliver on this? And then Steph will go through that professional learning resource that we have that will actually give you an example of how you can use them personally, but also more broadly across your school. If we move on to look at across Australia, more than 50% of schools across Australia already use our materials. I think that in itself will speak to the quality of what you'll see today, because our mission is driven by giving people support in how to deliver learning effectively. We call it effective teaching. And so that is what everything that drives our development is based on effective teaching, because that's where we know we will get the result. There's a whole lot of benefits that we'll take you through, not just for the school and the teachers, but also for the students. So Steph, can you start walking us through the benefits for the school and the teachers?
Absolutely. So the Every Child is Special program is built around 3 core learning streams. The first is social emotional learning, and then we have positive high expectations, which is what we're going to be looking at in depth today, and also character development. So some of the benefits for teachers and schools is that it helps foster consistency, a consistent positive school climate with clear behaviour expectations across the board. It supports a whole school implementation approach to social, emotional and character education. It also builds professional expertise across your staff in these key areas. It encourages collaboration between teachers and year levels for a more holistic student support. So there's no, inconsistency across different classes or year levels, for example, which is really important. And it reduces planning time with structured, ready to teach resources. We're going to show you the amount of resources teachers and school teams get. So there is no room for guessing. Everything is provided for you and you don't have to prepare these lessons yourself.
And
some of the benefits for the students are the social emotional learning. For the social emotional learning aspect, it builds positive relationships and emotional regulation. It supports empathy and teamwork and building resilience. And our positive high expectations stream promotes self-discipline and responsibility. It also reinforces values through teaching consistent routines and rules. And for character growth, it encourages kindness, grit, and leadership, and also builds confidence with a strong sense of self.
Okay, so what is positive high expectations? We've got a tagline called Feel, Act, Become. And if you had joined us for our Every Child is Special webinar a couple of weeks back, we explained this in more detail, that the feel is the social and emotional development about our feelings and how we respond. Our act is what we're concentrating on today, how we have those positive values, positive behaviours that reflect those shared values, and become, Steph talked briefly about character growth and character development. So how do we pursue? We form character by pursuing our goals. So today, as I said, we're focusing on the act, and how we roll that out is students learn about those clear rules and routines for learning and behaviour, that expectation for school-wide practices. They actually practice teamwork and gratitude. We talk about the values. What are the values of your school, and how do we link our behaviours constantly to those values in how we speak to the children? How do we care for ourselves, for our environment, but more importantly, how do we position ourselves in the school community to be a good citizen? So we touch on that. And of course, all of that is strengthening, I believe, their social and emotional well-being through that positivity that they'll see every time in that school. So Mark, if you can talk about that, what is positive expectations? What are those universal values? Who's involved?
Look, I think it's a partnership. It's a conversation right across the school community. It certainly has a strong focus on the kids, but to have mum and dad involved as well, and to have all of us having the same conversation and using the same language is a very powerful tool in setting the scene for acknowledging when students are getting things right. So the gotcha moments become gotcha for good things. So being responsible, showing respect, keep learning, working hard. Many schools will have very similar values, but bringing the values alive in the school and making them a core piece of conversation almost across every lesson is a very powerful tool in bringing everybody together to have a conversation and be on the same page.
And they extend into the community too, don't they, Mark? So by working with families and parents, they can help reinforce that balance at home.
Yeah, and the other thing that ties in well is if these values then become part of a reward system where students are acknowledged for, being very responsible, showing great respect. Mum and dad come in, there's a special, parade or assembly. Their son or daughter's up there being given a special award for their performance in that value. So it just highlights it and reinforces the fact that it's part of what we do in the school every day.
Great. And if you can just move, we talk about implementing a positive high expectation stream. What would be the things that you would expect to see when you or you're at a school? I think as experienced principals, you can walk into a school and you have this feeling, don't you, of what the school is about, what it stands for, and that's that positive high expectation stream. So what are the sorts of things schools can do here?
Look, the thing I would see most is the positive way in which the teachers are working with the kids. So there's this positive relationship, and the relationship is focused on success. So they're the things I'd see quickly. But also just looking around the classroom, I'd see examples of those that they might be rules and routines. I'd see examples of the values. So there's a constant visual reminder in the space, which means a teacher can refer to it when a young person does something really well. Perhaps has to refer to it if there's some additional work needs to be done to get something right. But the actual whole classroom space is revolving around this high expectation of success. I think that's the thing that I see most. So it's very obvious very quickly when teachers are working in that strong space, and you see the kids' eyes light up and they know that their response is going to be valued. They get a positive remark back, and it's just got this sort of flow that goes through the class.
Yeah. And when we talk about explicitly teaching rules and routines, one of the things we did at Hopevale was a behaviour week. And we've got a little video here, Mark, that demonstrates that, just a very short snippet of the sorts of things that we mean by teaching explicitly the rules and the routine. Can we have a quick look at it?
Means that you try your best, you keep going and you don't give up.
Beautiful. All right, give our volunteers a clap. Everybody, I appreciate that. We are going from class to class. The first rule when we go from class to class is walk to class. What's the first rule, everybody? Walk. Remember, step 1 is practice what we say. So we have time in our mind to think about one thing we are grateful for. Step 2, we stand up.
Your belongings. Number 2, I hope you boys are listening.
My turn. Go to class.
Pencils in your rubbers, in your desk, neatly.
Your contacts. Alright? Remember them.
Alright, think about a time when you learned something new. Okay, maybe you learned how to ride a bike.
So, Mark, there was a few little actions in there of things that you had just referenced.
Means that you try your
Yeah, look, I think what the consistent message from every teacher there was that they've got high expectation even as they ask the kids to do things. So there's no uncertainty about what the teacher wants. So I think all of that just melts together. So there's that strong sense of, look, this is how we do things here.
Yeah. I'm just noticing that there's nothing in that question and answer little tab yet. Did anyone want to make a comment in there on what they've seen so far, or ask a question of what they've seen? Ask of any of our panelists as well. Remember that at the end of the session we're going to come back to that and look at what your queries are. So let's move on to how our high expectations are taught. And Steph, you're going to walk us through this part of how they're taught, what a lesson would look like, and then we'll move on to professional learning.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah, so looking at how positive high expectations are taught, they're taught in a few different ways. And firstly is through lessons. So our curriculum has 2 units. The first unit focuses on personal responsibility, teamwork, gratitude, and caring for the environment. And unit 2 focuses on routines that build emotional well-being and social skills. For the lesson structure, each unit includes 9 lessons that can be taught across the term. And lessons are timetabled weekly, and they can be integrated into Every Child is Special days, positive high expectation lessons, which are 20 minutes each, and lunchtime chats or hobby clubs, which we'll look into. And the resources that you get is an instructional teaching guide, which is the script for every lesson. Everything the teacher needs to say is already written in there for you. Student workbooks, which includes all of the independent work and the activities that students complete. Visual instruction posters, which Mark will take us through some shortly, of not only in the classroom, but also outside the classroom as well. And then our professional learning modules, which I will talk about later, and how to support you to implement positive high expectations throughout your school. So now we're going to take a look at some of our lesson special features and what they involve. Firstly, our lessons explicitly teach school values. So here we've got show respect, and it teaches the importance of respecting others, and then also having respect for the school, like following rules and listening to your teacher, for example. And our lessons also have things called Check for Understanding, which is just used to assess whether students have understood the material that's been taught. And here it's a quick activity. Students show thumbs up or down to indicate what they know. And this just ensures that students are actively engaged throughout the learning process, and also identifies any areas of confusion or misunderstanding that need to be addressed. And lessons also explicitly teach the school motto and values. So here we have Hopevale and Cohen's school motto, get ready. It explains what it means to get ready, to work hard and be good. And this just helps students connect the values they learn in class to everyday action. So it just reinforces positive behaviour and character development throughout the school community.
Right. So, Jonty, you've been in a school where positive high expectations are taught. Do you want to just talk us through that process?
Yeah. So every teacher in Hopevale has a copy of all the lessons. And even though we do go through it on a behaviour week or an ECIS day at the start of each term, we find it at the school very important to go through these lessons during day-to-day learning. And it's really hardening for these kids to actually remember these lessons, and they're so excited to, when we get to the checkups, to give us the thumbs up and tell us how that they know the rules, and they're so excited about it all. But as we flip through some of the lessons as we go on, it's just so lovely to see that these kids will get to the thumbs up. It gives us the thumbs up. They will be ready to give us the answer. And I find it especially important to tell these kids, how well they're doing. Like a great example is, I'll see Jimmy in the classroom and I'll say, thank you, Jimmy, for following the classroom rule of pushing in your chair. as you get to leave. And then that almost spreads like an infection as more and more kids rush to push in their chairs or make sure they're pushed in their chairs. It's really lovely to see that, every classroom do that. And it's just so important that it's consistently done. And each teacher does do this. And it just embeds it into their learning without the kids even realizing.
Great. And you've seen an example as we've gone through those of what they mean by explicitly teaching. Mark, there's also something we provide to the schools called enhancement displays. How did you use those?
Yeah, I think they were a great reference in classrooms, Julie, both for teachers and for kids. And they were really prudent because, when a teacher spotted a gotcha moment we think is something bad, but a gotcha could be something actually really good. And based on some of the documents there, you'll see, for example, being grateful, practice what you want to say. When a teacher sees or hears a student doing that, then they reward them. But the posters as a visual reference means that there's some certainty, both for teachers and for kids. And I've seen that work really, really well. My favourite poster is definitely the brain break. I hadn't seen that before, but when I've watched teachers using that little break in a lesson to give the kids a chance to, sort of put their head somewhere for a second, then come back to their learning, that's just such a highly effective strategy. So these posters combine all of that. But I think the ready reference is the key one. I mean, the calm down as well, coming in after a lunch break. What are some of the key strategies to get kids back on track and ready for learning? And then even the end of day, my observation of kids is they love routine. And here we go back to a set routine where everybody knows what the expectation is and the kids have certainty. And all of the things, each of those 5 posters contains those elements of certainty. And I've always seen kids react really well to that.
Yeah, and Jonty, you've got practical examples. I'm sure I'll put you on the spot of something where you've seen these displays work well.
Yeah. We have these posters up all throughout our classroom, and I think they're just really lovely to be able to point to and direct kids so that they can remember. As we point to the sign, they don't even have to read it; they just remember it almost off by heart. But I also find them really useful. So I remember one day we had a kid, and he was very heightened and frustrated, and I offered for him to go to the Zen Den. And the Zen Den is our little place. It's a little bit different in each classroom where they can go and sit in a little area and just have some time alone. And as I pointed to it, the kid went over and he took some time to calm himself down, and he looked over to the use those strategies calm down poster, looked at one of the ideas, and then quietly did it himself in the corner and came back completely fine, no longer shaking, no longer frustrated. And it was just really, really great to just see that these strategies helped that kid in that moment without any help from a teacher or another student or anything. He was able to reward himself for his own work.
Yeah, that's terrific. And Mark, it's not just inside the classroom, outside as well, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think routines for the kids is really important. And it means that the kids can move around the school, they can be in different places, different times, all done with that measure of certainty, respect for the rest of the school. So they're just little procedures, essentially. But again, these are adopted right across the school. That's how I've seen them work well, so that every classroom and every teacher is on the same page. So again, you've got this common language or common expectation across the school, so that no matter which teachers with which group of kids, the expectation is the same. And that consistency is like gold in the school.
Yeah. And Jonty, I'm going to put you on the spot again. Give me a practical example of that.
Well, a practical example in Hopevale is we have to give the time for the kids to eat beforehand, and we always ring the bell 5 minutes before class starts so they can follow the rule of use the toilet, play and get a drink, and we find that really useful. Sometimes those signs can be a little bit hard to see when you're outside playing, so it's really important for us as a school that any staff that is outside during playtime is role modeling these rules. So I find it really important to make sure that when I'm out there, I follow steps 2, 3, and 4, and 5 of play, of making sure that everyone's playing well with each other, they're using the equipment properly, and they always put the equipment away. So as soon as I hear the bell go, I start putting equipment away, and I praise those kids who are putting it away. So little Timmy's putting away the basketball that he was playing with. I go, thank you, Timmy, for putting the basketball away. And then again, it grows. And it's really easy to just do that and get the playground packed up and kids into class really quickly, which I know, and from other schools I've worked in, can be a little bit of a problem. So, it's almost like as a teacher's role is to coach these kids through it and, less yelling at them. Not, as Mark says, a got 'em moment. It's more of a moment to celebrate that these kids are doing the right thing and praise them for doing the right thing.
That's right. And if anyone's online and would love to make a comment on these posts or these resources that you've seen, because they are a big investment for schools. When you see this sort of thing around a school, they don't just appear without. So it's an actual decision by leadership to make sure that all these enhancements that can support this program and the development of this program are actually available to teachers and to teaching assistants. So if you've got a comment on that, I'd love to see that come up and we'll discuss it further at the end. So someone at the beginning, Steph, they mentioned the importance of the professional learning, and I know you're going to take us through a series of the importance of what that is and also what we can do to help.
Yeah, definitely. So how do we support you as a teacher to implement positive high expectations? And we do this through our mastery teaching pathway. And we have spent so much time developing a lot of modules and a lot of resources to support teachers and principals and school teams to get started, because it might be entirely new to kind of establish this school-wide. And the most important thing, and both Mark and Jonty have outlined the importance of consistency across the school and just removing that uncertainty. So both teachers and students are aware, because they both know the same rules, routines, and expectations. So I'll show you a little bit more in depth soon about our modules that we offer, our training modules, just to ensure that there is that consistency and teachers do feel supported. But we support teachers and school teams to make data-informed decisions. This is a really important part of positive high expectations, because data drives that targeted, impactful interventions in behaviour management, and also each type of data plays a unique and critical role. So there are 3 different types of data that we focus on. And firstly is the implementation fidelity data. So this tracks how closely teachers follow the behaviour systems and practices. And when I meet with the school teams, we often discuss if there are new teachers who require training, or if, tracking how teachers are using and following these practices and procedures. Are they confident with implementing the program? And then we often discuss which training modules that they should be directed towards. The next thing we look at is student outcome data. So this includes things like office referrals, suspensions, attendance, and classroom behaviour records. So just tracking exactly what's going on, what's been happening. In our meetings as well, we often look at, is there one student with multiple incidents, and how can we support them? So looking at the data to drive our decision making is really important. And screening data, so that identifies the students who might need extra support early on. And when I do regularly meet with the schools, we discuss students with multiple behaviour incidents and how we can address them. So what are their needs? What are the factors that contribute to these behaviours? How can we support them better? And then we also provide resources like individual behaviour plan to develop this plan and this tailored solution to make sure that each student is supported. So each type of data plays a really crucial role in guiding interventions and supporting improving outcomes. So using this data in this way just ensures that strategies are both focused and impactful, which is really important.
So Mark, you've used data obviously in a large school, you've used it in a smaller school, primary, secondary. How did you use data to drive that the decisions that are informed by that data? Because the data is the starting point, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think if your practice is evidence-based and the evidence is the data, then at least you got some sense of what's actually going on around the school and what should we actually focus on. And it'll start with a gut feeling. Some people will say, hey, look, I've noticed a bit more of this happening or a little bit more of that happening. And we'll say, well, what evidence do we have? What does our data tell us? And if we see a spike in something, it also means that we can actually react as opposed to just sit and watch something get worse. So I think that the ability to be able to move in a space where our evidence is telling us there's more of this going on, or the flip side is, if there's been a couple of behaviour concerns, for example, and it's reduced, how do we celebrate that with the kids and say, hey, guys, this is fantastic. Look at this improvement. So I think the evidence that you can bring into play that way means that your decision can provide for you an improved platform. So that means, you can step growth or step development with kids and with staff. So I think that's been really positive.
The great thing about this Every Child is Special program is, I believe, the flexibility that enables schools deliver it in different ways. So we talked about the 3 different streams, the social emotional learning, the positive high expectation, and the character growth, and they focused on positive high expectations. But let's look at a few. We think there's 5 ways you could do this across a school. The first way is you have the whole package. You implement the Every Child is Special across the 3 streams. You have a curriculum program called Life Mastery, and we do lunchtime chats. We do hobby club. So that's a full comprehensive program. And we have explained each of those elements in another webinar, but a comprehensive approach would be encompassing all those areas. The second one that you could pick up as an option for your school is where you target a single stream, where Mark said, it might be about a school need or a particular student's need. That you want to focus on, whether it's the positive high expectations to get that consistency across the school, or about that social emotional well-being. You can pick up a single stream. You can target a particular cohort. You can target a particular lesson that you want to incorporate any of these single streams into. So that's another option. A third option is just the classroom lessons that pick up all 3 streams. There are 290 lessons being developed across each of these 3 streams. So it's a very comprehensive and supported package of materials that you can implement in your school. The next one is you may want to bring it into a cross-curricular program. Everything we do is mapped to version 9 of the Australian curriculum. So those general capabilities you can bring into your science program, into your English, into your history program, wherever, into your physical education. This is mapped very closely to the physical education capabilities. So this is something you can pick up and bring in as aspects of a particular learning area that may suit your certain timetable. And finally, there's that tailored support. What do you want to do? Where do you want all levels to participate? Do you just want a particular level, an individual classroom? Or do you want it to work with a child one-on-one and give that individual support? So you can break all this down. And what I've tried to demonstrate through these various options is the adaptability and the flexibility that our program will offer to you in how you bring that in. Steph, I'm just conscious of time. I want you to address that professional learning range that people want to know about.
Yeah, so we offer a comprehensive suite of professional learning modules for school teams to support the effective delivery of positive high expectations. And you can tailor your selection to match your program focus or explore key topics through standalone professional learning, covering areas like special needs, for example, behavior, social emotional learning, and character development with practical evidence-based strategies. And what we're going to do now is we're going to preview some samples, and we're also going to give you some tips that you would actually learn through our professional learning modules. So looking at practice, use positive motivation strategies. In this module, you'll learn how to use positive praise and affirmations to boost student engagement and confidence, which both Mark and Jonty have discussed the importance of, also the gotcha moment where you're telling students what they did really well. So some of the tips that we explore is maintaining a 4:1 ratio of positive specific praise to corrections. Tell students specifically what it is. Don't just say great job. Tell them exactly, well done, you remember to push your chair in. This keeps the classroom atmosphere encouraging and reminds students of what they're doing well and to keep doing it. Use tangible rewards and visual data displays to motivate students and make progress visible. So we also provide data walls where you can put them up in the classroom, and then this helps students track progress as well. Observe classrooms that are already successful in motivation to pick up effective techniques, and you can direct teachers to those other teachers that you think are doing a really great job so they can learn from that as well. And collaborate with your colleagues to share ideas and tailor motivational strategies for your students. It's important to meet regularly and ensure that everyone is on that same page, and there's that consistency across the school, which we keep mentioning is so important. So these positive motivation strategies are also embedded in our curriculum, in our teaching guides as well. So for example, our teaching guides always say something like 4 praise statements for 1 corrective statement ratio. So we actually remind teachers in their lessons of things to say. So recognize students who are participating. And if students are off task, generalize the focus to refocus by saying, I see a few students who are off task. Let me repeat the instruction and give them that opportunity to come back. All of these comments are actually already in the teaching guide provided for you. So if you're entirely new to this, we're aware of that, and we've made it as easy as possible to build that consistency across different classrooms across the school. Next, we can look at practice, teach and embed routines and behaviour standards. So this module helps you gain strategies to embed routines and behaviour standards effectively in the classroom. And some of the tips you'll learn is to reflect on your current teaching practices to find areas for improvement. What am I doing well? What am I not doing well? And we have a lot of those self-evaluation surveys that we provide to schools as well, just to ensure that everyone, is reflecting on their own implementation. Another one is to proactively set clear expectations to reduce unwanted behaviour through predictability. And we encourage teachers to remind students of these rules and expectations daily as much as possible. Also teach, model and practice routines regularly to ensure smooth transition, might be between class, between activities, etc. And respond quickly and thoughtfully to address negative behaviours, and also reinforcing positive ones, which is just as important. Let them know what they're doing well, and also, shutting down that behaviour that's unwanted as well. Next is build positive high expectation school communities. So this module teaches you how to model and embed positive high expectation behaviours across your classroom and the whole school as well. So some of the tips are to use reflection and feedback to keep improving your own teaching practices. Develop and maintain consistent school-wide expectations. So, for example, the whole team using 3, 2, 1 to get students' attention, for example, just making sure that that's consistent in every classroom. Building strong, positive relationships with students, parents, and colleagues. Engaging parents is super important. We talk about engaging parents in the individual behaviour plan, so they're aware of the goals and they understand what's going on at school for their child, and to kind of reiterate that at home as well is really important. Also, address and redirect negative behaviours constructively and effectively. So when a student rolls their eyes, stay calm and remind them, of our respect rule, which is really important, and then get them to re-engage in the task and kind of shift the way, from a negative to a positive. So instead of saying, don't be rude, say, can you speak kindly? Or, even when you're upset, just reframing the way that we phrase things. Or instead of saying, that's not how we do it, say, let me show you how to do this step by step. Building students up for success is really important. And these are some of the tips that we explore in those modules. We also have the Positive High Expectations Toolkit. So this, these are just some of the things that you'll get, but you get things like an implementation guide, which shows you, how to implement this in your school. We even provide things like behaviour management team meeting templates, which we actually use ourselves when we're meeting with the schools as well. And this provides things like the Big 5 guiding questions, where we ask the schools, what are the most frequent types of problem behaviours? When are the most frequent behaviours occurring? How often are the incidents occurring? When and what can we do? And we actually use this data to make changes. So we found in Hopevale, a lot of incidents were occurring straight after recess. And then we've decided maybe it's because there was some unresolved conflict, at recess. So then some classes introduced a discussion circle where students would meet and, talk about their feelings and then resolve conflicts before getting into the lesson. Or they reduced the time between recess and lunch because that class time was really long and it was causing students to, fall off task and, misbehave. So just adapting, making sure that the data drives our decisions is really important. We've got check-in, check-out forms, individual behaviour plans, which I've mentioned, and so much more. So these tools support consistent behaviour management across the school and just ensures everything is needed for continual improvement. It's all in the one place for you.
I know that's so comprehensive, Steph, but I'm just wondering, are any of our participants thinking we use something else that's terrific in our school? If that's the case, could you pop that into the chat so that we can learn from that and discuss it at the end? Because we always want to improve and we always want to add great resources to what we're doing. So, Steph, let's go through the Mastery Teaching Pathway, which is the more comprehensive platform that we use for professional learning.
Yeah, so the Mastery Teaching Pathway is our professional development platform for educators and school teams. It's available to all of our members. It offers certified training and coaching aligned with the Australian National Teaching Standards and school improvement goals. And it's designed for everyone in education, all the way from principals to teaching assistants, and equips them with essential skills for success. So if we have a look at our range, our professional learning modules are grouped by purpose to support the different professional learning needs, essentially. So first is the course module, and this focuses on building effective teaching knowledge and confidence across all subjects. Then we have the program module. So this offers deep training aligned to specific programs, which gives like an overview of the program, instructional strategies and supportive resources. It goes through the unit and lesson components. It goes through different scenarios and also the assessment and success criteria as well. Then we have our practice modules, which are these short targeted lessons to address specific teaching challenges, and then the collegial modules. So these are designed for whole school teams to learn together, and they're perfect for student-free days with a focus on evidence-based practices.
And Mark, you've led some of those collegial modules at a student-free day, and people talking and people interacting and discussing about what it is that they're actually learning and can apply in different ways in their classroom.
Yeah, and I think often those conversations can be affirmations of great practice, and to have that across your staff is brilliant. And staff get to learn more about what other staff are doing, so the collegiality base for it is really effective, I find.
Great, and we've got one question in our chat. And Joyita, welcome back. We had you joined us last week, I know, I recognise the name. Does the achievement wall create conflict between parents and students? I'm not sure what you mean by achievement wall, but one of the things that I know about this program is that it's very open, and parents and the school share information freely and try and work out ways to support each other. So I haven't ever seen conflict that's come out of this sort of program. And do you want to make a comment there?
Sorry, Julie, was that to me?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it either, because I think, I think the achievement wall can have so many elements to it. It can be from attendance, it can be from, demonstrating high expectation behaviour. And across that wall, children achieve across the wall. So it's not as though one child's not achieving anywhere. I've also not seen it become a competition. What I've seen is other kids congratulating their other kids on success. So it's a success builder, not an opportunity to sort of, tear someone down for being successful. So I've never seen a tall poppy type syndrome as a result of it either. So I think it's obviously the culture the teacher creates around that success is about, being able to celebrate a child's success with the whole class. And that to me is what I've seen most of. But no, I've never seen it as a challenge, as a problem.
Yeah. Jonty, what have you loved most about the program when you've worked on the ground with the students in the classrooms, in the playground? What's the one thing that stands out to you?
Oh, I just think it's the most important thing about it is that it's consistent through every classroom. We have a lot of kids going to different classrooms, and it's good, that they have that routine. They know that whether it's Miss Emma or, Miss Shaniqua, that they both have the same examples, the same rules, the same kind of routines that they can just familiarize themselves with, and that can be their kind of safe thing. They know there's a Zen bin. They know there's the displays on the walls. It's really important for these kids to have that routine and have that something that grounds them, something that can be consistent throughout any classroom. I find that the most important for sure.
Yeah, thanks, Jonty. And I think the other questions that come up to our developers when we're rolling these programs out is about the flexibility. I think we've covered that off. How can we integrate it into existing wellbeing programs? I think we've covered that this afternoon. Steph, what happens when you're working with a school and they say to you, no matter what I do, these positive motivational strategies are not working with a particular student? And I bet every teacher online has actually gone to that student. They can see them in their minds. What would you say to that teacher?
Well, that's why it's really important that when, we use these tiered behavioural supports as outlined in the behaviour management toolkit, which is also provided for you, to tailor those specific goals and strategies for tier 3 students, which are those students that, need that additional support. They kind of need, we've got check-in, check-out forms where you daily, you check in with them to see have they achieved their goals? What's the goal for today? Starting small and then working our way back. Like I know Mark and Jonty, you might have a lot of students who even it's a gradual entry back into school, and to not overwhelm them in the classroom, where it's a bit of a transition, and it's tailored to that individual student. So it's important to create those. We've got the intensive behaviour plan as well, which all teachers need to be across, and everyone's on that same page for that student. Because using the tiered behavioural supports from that behaviour management toolkit, it just allows teachers to support students needing additional help, and it gives them something that, like you said, explicitly teaching rules and routines, it works for the majority, but some students need that extra assistance and targeted support, which is really important to address.
I'm going to throw a question to Mark and Jonty. All four of us that have presented today have actually completed our professional learning modules, whether it be in a particular subject or about a particular practice at a school. Mark, when you did those modules, I remember you telling me your feedback. Can you tell our participants today exactly how you found doing the module?
Yeah, I found they were excellent examples of practice. And when I could watch the teacher actually teaching that component of the lesson, it made it really easy for me to follow and really clear to understand. I had a bit of a hazy idea on some things, but when I watched it a couple of times, it was really obvious to me that the practice was very specific, and it gave me an insight into what I should do quite directly to ensure that I'm delivering what it is I need to deliver. So it gave me great certainty, Julie. That's the part I like the most. Yeah.
And Jonty, what about you?
I'm kind of along the same boat here. It's just really great to have that for the kids, for them to rely back onto it, but you as a teacher or as a teacher aide to be able to rely on that. And their kids they get so used to it and they're so happy with it that they sometimes remind me about it. And it's really useful to have that strategy and have those programs ready. And when you're learning about them, it's just it seems like so much, but as you do it every day and you think about it every day and see it every day, it just becomes a part of your learning, a part of your teaching.
It becomes embedded, doesn't it, into your practice?
All day, every day. I think it's just, can't live without it now.
It becomes part of your rules and routines, doesn't it? Your expectation of self, even. One of our attendees has asked, can we, as standalone teachers, participate in the module? So let me take you to the next slide of membership. Yes, you can sign up individually. And in fact, if you scan that barcode there, that would take you to the Good to Great Schools Australia website, where you can actually sign up as an individual. What we do encourage, though, is a partner school membership. Because while it's great that an individual teacher can build their practice in a classroom, particularly in any aspect, and I shouldn't just say particularly behaviour, but in behaviour, if you've got one teacher doing something in one way and others doing it in another way, you're losing that impact. So it's important that if you're doing these programs school-wide, then that partner school membership becomes really important, because the partner school membership gives people access to more documentation, more curriculum programs, those data tracking tools, and that expert advice that you can call on to be, if you're a partner school member. So see that email address there. If you want to recommend to your leader or you're a school leader, contact us and we'll get you set up as a partner school membership. I can't stress enough the impact we see when schools adopt our practices, our programs school-wide. Everyone, thank you for joining us today. We have one more webinar in the Queensland term, and that is next week, and it's on visual arts. And it's the visual arts that connect and inspire from foundation to year 3. So that is on June the 25th. It would be great if you could join us. And if you're someone that loves the visual art, you will be blown away by how the developers have developed these programs. They're absolutely brilliant, and they've given such thought and time to actually selecting the resources that you will use in your classroom. They have taken away the time, the hours that you spend planning for these programs by doing this work for you. And as Steph said, the planning's done. We still know the teachers still have to do the preparation for the lesson, because you need to know what's coming up and get your resources ready and so on. but you'll be just blown away by the resources you'll see in our visual arts, as I think we see every week in our webinars. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. Can I thank Stephanie, Jonty and Mark from our school perspective? I think you just add so much to our webinars, and we really appreciate the time you've given so generously today, on top of a big work day, no doubt. So thank you again, and everyone, please join us again next week for our visual arts webinar. Thanks again, and good night.